you so much, everybody, for joining us for another episode of Coro Chronicles. And today I have to tell you, and I know I'm always excited about my guests because let's be honest, I get to hand select them. But as many of you probably already know, this is Melanie Perry with Primrose. But for me, she has been someone I feel like, honestly, Melanie, I feel like I've kind of stalked you on LinkedIn over the years.
We've stalked
Just
each
because,
other, yes.
yeah, just because things you would post would resonate with me and just things that you would share. And then obviously, I mean, your reputation in the industry as a whole, but really it's not about me. So I want you, and I know I'm going to learn so much, but I want you to kind of share with our viewers because for me, everyone knows it's all about the stories of the people, and kind of how your journey has been, what attracted you to long-term care. I know a little bit about your education, which I find fascinating too. And I think that's a huge caveat and a benefit that so many people who get to know you and get to work with you get to benefit from. Yeah, I know I'm talking a lot, but yeah, share with us, like, what got you here?
Sure.
Oh,
That's a 33-year-old story that I would be telling you. So
wow.
I promise to forego some of the details of those 33 years. But basically, my degrees and my professional educational intent was to become a mental health therapist. I was going to hang a shingle. I was going to try and do my best to help people through life and providing advice and self-reflection, all those things. So it does so happen that I have a bachelor's and a couple of master's degrees in the field of mental health, psychology, mental health counseling. But when I was finishing my second master's, I needed a job to supplement my student loans, as many of us have gone through that journey. And I had the occasion to become a personal care assistant in Southeast Florida in an all memory care environment. And so I thought, well, I've worked with different populations of people before. I have not yet worked with an elder population. So I'll give it a try. If I don't like it, I can always leave. And once I arrived in that particular community, it was an as I mentioned, all memory care, at the time, unusual assisted living, all memory care community. And my onboarding consisted of following a team member around for one day throughout the community as she let me know a little bit about the residents, the routine of the day, how things ran. And the second day I was on my own with those residents.
Oh, wow.
Caring for them, never having learned a great deal about Alzheimer's, dementia, what that looks like, how to serve individuals. And so, even at that point in time, that early stage of my career, I thought, wow, this is not sufficient. We need to do better for these individuals. I continued to serve them, absolutely fell in love with the service of individuals living with cognitive change, and began to kind of create my journey from there, from not only being a personal care assistant, then becoming a memory care director, then being able to start serving from a home office perspective, and then finally adding in life enrichment support as part of that wonderful journey as well. So I could serve not only individuals living with cognitive change, but any individual living within a senior living environment, taking on once again that goal of increasing and maximizing quality of life for individuals living in senior living, no matter where they may be in any portion of the community or any part of a cognitive journey. So with that, it's just been a fulfilling 33 years. I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. That is part of my personal and professional mission, not part of it. That's what it is. And it just feels like this is me. This is who I am. This is why I'm here, is to serve elders. And that's how we find ourselves here today. And then about 2.5 years ago, I was given the wonderful opportunity to come on board with Primrose Retirement Communities. We started working on the memory care portion of our service line, came up with a Silver Lace name, concept, vision statement, completely kind of reset that program. And then about a year ago, I was given the honor of being able to start serving and supporting our life enrichment efforts for the organization as well. And that's been quite a journey, and a journey into well-being and truly looking at ways to increase the quality of life for our residents within all of our 34 communities across the country.
Wow. And you're right. You kind of like sped through that. And it's such a powerful story. And there is a piece that I am fascinated by just because it was 33 years ago and you're talking about your education. Mental health was not something that was really talked about then. Like, what was your attraction to that? Like that was not common.
Right. So I think my attraction to that goes back even further. I happened to go to a high school that had a program that, as students were nominated and forwarded by the teachers in that school, those of us who seemed to have that kind of that helping force, if you will, that attraction to helping others, to being a part of other people's journey, there was actually a program, and it was a peer mentoring program that was a part of this school. I was fortunate enough to be nominated for that program. And when I was found myself in that situation of being able to help my fellow and sister students with whatever they were going through, being that mentor, being that listener for them, being that helper for them, and for younger students, I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the ability to be able to help others. It felt so fulfilling, even at that young age. And it was at that point in time, I knew I wanted to go into some type of a helping profession. So from high school on, I just knew that I wanted to become a helper. And then with that experience of being that peer
Mhm.
mentor, helping people with their particular emotional challenges, that led me down that road to that field of mental health.
Wow, the richness, not just of your career, but I mean, I come from an HR background too. And so there's a lot of like tests you can take and then strength finders. And you take it, and I just listening to you, I know that your number one superpower is empathy because of what I mean, especially even just that, like even when you're sharing, and I know a little bit about your education, but yeah, we're talking about mental health more today. And 30
Yeah,
years ago, it definitely wasn't something that you wouldn't see in such
correct.
common places and
Correct.
stuff. So
And yeah, and we need to talk about it,
yeah.
because not only for ourselves, for our team members, but the residents that we serve in senior living, we know that if we can apply some of those principles of
Mhm.
psychology, if we follow Erickson's life stages, we know that there is work that needs to be done when we reach our elder years, to make sure that when we lay our heads on our pillows for the last time as we're getting ready to depart this earth, if we can help our residents that we're serving be able to lay their heads on their pillow for the last time and lay their head on the pillow and go, yeah, you know what? This was a good life. I feel like I'm ready. I've wrapped everything up. I've done my work. And so I can lay my head comfortably on my pillow, perhaps for the last time, knowing that I've done my work. So helping, if we look at Erickson's life stages, and we're looking at those a couple of final stages of that integrity versus despair or ego integration, that really helping our residents to wrap it all up, to bring it all together so that life has meaning, so that they've shared their stories, so that they've finished their business, so that they've come to peace with who they have been throughout their entire lives up to this point, then that is so important. And I think a major part of our work from the field of life enrichment with our residents to help them get to that point. So I think that's where I come from. That psychological point is, how do we apply these principles as we're serving our residents, not only from a daily quality of life perspective, but then also this end of life work that needs to be done so that we can feel good when our final day arrives, to say, it's been a good ride and I'm very satisfied with where I am at this moment.
I love that. So going back to Primrose and you being
Mhm.
there, what you've set into place and what you train to and share with, like, could you share maybe some of the things that you can do for residents that come to you and it's like, I'm not in that phase yet, but I'm heading
Mm.
there, but I have things that aren't finished.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. Absolutely. I think we're fortunate enough that we are utilizing a life enrichment platform that also assesses our residents' quality of life, both their self-perceived quality of life as well as a collegiately developed and empirically validated quality of life assessment tool. So that helps us to identify analytically those residents who are either perceiving their overall quality of life or their health status as not being where they would hope it would be. Or we also have an objective number that, even if a resident isn't quite being able to perceive it or express it, that we do have that more objective number. What that allows us to do is truly hone in on those residents that are either perceiving that lower quality of life or having it be expressed through this more objective tool. Wrap our arms around those
Mm.
individuals, have some conversations, delve into what they feel that they may be missing, and truly then apply some specific interventions so that we can help to boost that self-perception of their health, of their quality of life, or boost that more objective number over time. And sometimes it's very often things like, are they missing an aspect of their quality of life? So for instance, are they a creative person, and are we not offering them enough creative opportunity? You and I have both talked about the power of music, the power of art,
Mhm.
the power of creativity for human beings. And so are we offering them those opportunities? Is it a person of faith and we haven't found what their spiritual expression is for them? Maybe we've assumed that it means it's a church service once a week for this person. Maybe it's a different approach. And what is that? So they are feeling good about their spirituality. Are we having good friend groups that we are introducing them to, or even a special friend? Because we all know that the isolation for any human being is detrimental and impairs our health. So are we helping this person find engagement and find a community within our care community so that they do feel engaged and part of it? Do they feel meaning and purpose? Because we all understand that if we lose the feeling of purpose, a feeling of meaning, now we're talking about Maslow's hierarchy, so we're going to use another psychological reference here. If we don't help residents function from that very top perspective of that being that very top of the hierarchy, being that sense of self-transcendence, meaning being a part of something larger than ourselves. And if we go one step below that to self-actualization, meaning being the best that we can being the very best that we can be, if we're not helping our residents achieve those two highest levels of Maslow's hierarchy, we're missing our opportunity to serve them as best we can. We're missing the opportunity to give them that best quality of life that we can offer them. So those tools that we have with that objective of making sure that we are helping them to be the best that they can be, to achieve what they perceive as being that high quality of life, those are those are the objectives that we are striving and that we are teaching our life enrichment coordinators to look at the data, find those individuals who need us the most, wrap our arms around them, have those more in-depth conversations, really apply those person-centered interventions and experiences and offerings so that we can maximize that quality of life within our communities, so that when that day comes, that particular resident does leave this earth or this plane, that we have helped them perhaps achieve that higher quality of life, that higher perceived sense of quality of life and sense of self than than they would have otherwise achieved without us. That's our goal. That's our objective. What we're trying to do is really elevate the whole concept of life enrichment from, we want to get away from busyness, which I think in days gone by, we were okay with just a full calendar with lots of stuff, to more meaningful, enriching, life affirming experiences for our residents.
Wow, I feel like I just took a psychology class right now in elder care.
No charge.
Yeah, exactly. You could send Coro de Bell. And I love how even when you express, and I love data, because I think there's a lot in this space that's really emotional, and sometimes you have to back away from that to like you said, it's like, where is this emotion coming from? It's the same thing, honestly, like being a parent. It's like when our kids were babies and toddlers, and we're not having that ability to communicate, you're trying to figure things out. But if I had data on them, it would have been so much easier. And I love how you even express yourself, like wanting to bring them in once you have that. I always have discussions with people, and even for myself, that there are particular stories and there are particular moments and people that we carry with us.
Yes.
That there are the people that we remind ourselves that this is why they may no longer be here, but I carry them with me because they were part of my journey. So I would love to know 1, 2 stories of the people that that are part of you in this journey.
Oh, that's a great question. And you're absolutely right. There are those that occasionally will touch our hearts and that will stay with us for the rest of our professional careers, if not our lives. And one of those people for me is a dear lady. Her name was Lily Mae. She was a school teacher from South Carolina. And it was in my stage of my career when I was still that personal care assistant. And still, as I mentioned, learning as I went about Alzheimer's, dementia, cognitive change, and what that means for the individual and how we interact with them. And so I was intuitively taught this lesson of validation from Lily Mae one day when we were all sitting in a group format. And in her perception of what was happening within that group, she was immediately taken back to her days as a school teacher. And so as she saw us all sitting there, all of a sudden she stood up. And when I say stood up, she was probably all of 4'8" and had a significant curvature of her spine. And so she was very bent over, a tiny person, but the most vibrant blue eyes and the most beautiful shock of white hair, snow white hair that you will ever see. But she stood up and she said, now I want 3 girls and 3 boys to line up, and we are going to have a spelling bee. And so we looked at each other as team members. And so you better believe we lined up and we were getting ready for that spelling bee. And she led that spelling bee with us. And so we felt so happy and joyful because her eyes were shining and bright, and the smile that makes me want to cry, the smile on her face, because she was having a spelling bee with her students and just enjoying it immensely. So to me, even before Naomi File and learning that process of validation, this was validation because we were able to sense that she needed us to be those students for her at that moment, and we gladly did and had a wonderful interaction. Another one, I think, a point of validation, another resident that I served with, this very wonderful gentleman by the name of Orlando. And Orlando used to be a part of a service organization. And apparently every year they would have a yearly conference. And he was the toast maker. He was the person who welcomed everybody. And so for a while, we couldn't quite figure out, why does Orlando keep getting up in the middle of our groups, started wanting to talk, address everybody, kind of interrupt the groups, right? That was our thought at the time. Then when we talked with his daughter, we found out that he had this role within his organization. It all clicked, and we understood that's why he's standing up. He's wanting to greet everybody. He's wanting to fulfill that purpose of being the toast maker, the person who's working. So we learned then at the beginning of every group, especially if it was a larger group, we would say, okay, before we start, Orlando, would you like to give the welcome address? Would you like to greet everybody? And he would stand up and say, I am so glad that everybody is here. We are here for this or that, and would just welcome everybody. And so once again, validating that, providing him that sense of purpose, giving that back to him when his cognition had taken some of those things away from him, was once again so fulfilling and so wonderful. And I will always remember Orlando and Lily Mae for those reasons. And then there are certainly myriads of other stories, but those are the 2 that just popped into my mind when you asked that question.
Oh, I love those stories. Oh my gosh, I do. The way you share them. It's just like you said about Lily, like her eyes light up. So do yours. And so that just validates, even for me, receiving that this is the impact she had upon you. And that's the thing too. I think that, I mean, I spent my first 5 years in memory care when I started with Florida. And there were a couple of times I would be at communities where I could see those challenges of someone disrupting something, and all the staff is trying to do is just trying to take care of this disruption.
Right.
And everything, versus taking it just like you did, and especially still at being such a young age, but taking it, and it's like, where's this coming from? Being curious. I know you and I talk about like active aging, and you know where I'm going to go with this, but it is the power, not just in being curious as a caregiver, but being curious even for ourselves and our own well-being.
Sure. So you're absolutely right. I think as providers in senior living, that natural curiosity should be a part of what we're doing. We shouldn't just look at something, shrug, and just leave it behind, but rather, what does this lead us to? If we see somebody saying a certain word over and over again, if we see somebody who might not be experiencing cognitive change at this moment, but is constantly in their apartment, perhaps by themselves, isolating, not engaging with others, whatever it may be, if we have a family member who seems upset about something, rather than just saying, oh, that's just a difficult family member, I think in the world of senior living, it's so important that we do have that curiosity, that we look at that and say, that's not okay. That there's something more here, and we need to take a moment to explore it, or a few moments to explore it and find out, okay, what is going on here? If somebody's saying the same word, the same name over and over, why? Why are they saying that? Like for Orlando, why does he keep beating up? So talk to family members, look into their history, try and figure out the context with which
Mhm.
these things are occurring, and then try and follow that line of thought or that line of logic or that line of evidence in the direction that leads us to helping that person increase that quality of life. Once again, if it's a resident with cognitive change saying the same name over and over, why is that significant to them? What can we do to help them relieve that? Do we need to have a phone call with a family member? Do we need to have a photo album where we're looking at pictures? Do we
Yeah.
need to have a reminiscence experience to talk about that person? If it's somebody who's isolating in their apartment, is that truly the quality of life that they enjoy? Is that truly who they are as a human being? Or are there other reasons that they're isolating? Are they not comfortable? Is it hard for them to get around? Are they shy? Are they introverted? Are they feel they don't belong? Whatever it may be, follow that to figure that out. So maybe we can help them be more comfortable joining their neighbors within our community. If it's an upset family member, is it just a difficult family member? No, they're feeling something. These emotions are coming from some place or some root cause. Let's find out what is that root cause. So perhaps we can help them feel a little bit better, help them find resources, whether it be a support group, maybe some written resources, or maybe just a weekly visit with a leader within the community or another family member with whom they can have a connection. Let's continue that curiosity to find out why things are happening rather than just letting them be and let that be the status quo.
I love that. Yes, you're preaching to the choir. It continuously having that curiosity. And it's funny, you've mentioned it a little bit about staff and your team and those that you've taught along the way. Just like we take a person that's a resident that was under our care, we carry them in our heart. I have to imagine that there have also been people that have come to you just like you were when you were onboarded, and it's like, this is a very new space for me. I want to be here, but I don't know what to do.
Sure.
Is there someone, or maybe there's a lot, but someone who you saw their eyes light up and you saw them become this beautiful caregiver once
Sure.
yeah, so yeah, I would love to hear that story.
Sure. I can think of actually somebody that wasn't necessarily a caregiver. It was
Mhm.
actually it was a company that I served in the past, but there was an executive director of that
Mhm.
particular community. And the setup of this community was they had the AL, assisted living and independent living portion of the community in one building. And then the memory care portion of their community was in a completely separate building. And I noticed every time I would visit from a support visit, that executive director was never present in the memory care neighborhood. And so I sat down with him at one point and I said, please help me to understand why is it that I never see you on the neighborhood, knowing that this is still these residents under your care, under your license, under your responsibility. How do you know that they're receiving the quality of life that you would hope when I never see you on the neighborhood? And is that valid? Are you just not there when I'm here? Or is it
Yeah,
that you don't
yeah.
spend much time? And he actually said, I really don't spend much time on the neighborhood. And I said, tell me about that. Talk to me more about that. And he said, I'm afraid I'm going to do or say something wrong when I visit those residents. And so therefore, I don't want to create a moment of upset. I don't want to make them feel intimidated, whatever it was he was feeling. He said, I'm afraid of doing something wrong. And so I said, thank you so much for trusting me enough to share that with me. How about we do this? And I offered to have him accompany me every time I would visit the neighborhood, and then I mentioned a couple of other trusted team members that he could accompany. I said, just watch the way they interact with the residents. You'll see that it's just like you and I are communicating with each other. You may have to find some idiosyncrasies, but just watch and learn and observe and then try and then interact and just try. And I think you'll find that your comfort level will grow very quickly and you'll see that they're not the emotionally fragile people that you're potentially anticipating them to be, that they're people just like us who are just having some cognitive change. And so he started doing that and grew ever more confident and actually started visiting more frequently, and then actually started offering a program, a life enrichment program on a regular basis to those residents on that neighborhood. So that's one that makes me feel particularly good because he trusted me enough to share that with me. But then secondly, we were able to make a bit of a transformation there.
Oh, I love that because it is. I mean, you're exactly right. To have the trust to be honest about something he was carrying as shame.
Right.
And for us, that's we all carry that for different means and
Yes.
reasons. And
Hmm.
to be able to know you well enough and to probably obviously know your reputation, it was who you were, because I'm sure not if he would have been approached by other people, he probably wouldn't have given that type of honest and sincere. And I love that because it goes back to what we always hear about, the ripple effect.
Hmm.
And it's like the shift that you made and that ripple with him, and he took it, but now it has like progressed into something and grown just by you. And I'm sure it wasn't a very comfortable moment of like knocking on their door, can I come talk to you?
A
I
little
mean, we all
awkward,
kind of get that.
yes.
Yeah, we all get like that. So no, thank you for doing that.
Oh, well,
Yeah,
of course,
I
of course.
mean,
Well, and that's the thing too. I think anytime we let our residents be our voices, that it gives us that additional confidence. So that's something that occasionally I will encounter a leader, either from a life enrichment or a memory care perspective, like, oh, I just don't know if I should say it. I just don't know if I should bring it up. And I said, and I reminded them, who's in your heart? Who is propelling you to want to share this concern, this story, this need, this moment of advocacy? Who's in your heart? And if they say it's the residents, I will say, well, then let them be your voice. And so I think it's so important that if we remind ourselves that the people that we are here to serve are those elders, we keep them in our heart, allow them to become our voices, then that helps us to overcome those moments of hesitancy, those moments of, should I say something or should I not? Or this is awkward. I don't care if it's awkward. I don't care if I should try and decide if I should say it or not. My resident in my heart is telling me, and these are the words that they are giving me. And if we let those residents guide us and be our voices, then we're heading in the right direction, in my
oh
opinion.
yeah, completely. That's the guiding light. And I love that a moment ago you used the word try. And to me, try is just like curiosity.
Sure.
I know, like for my son, people used to say, oh, your mom, she loves you so much. That's what makes her a great mother. And my son, because I raised him this way, what I believe makes me a great mother, which is a caregiver, is that every morning I get up and I try, because that
You
to
said it.
me is the ultimate, that's the ultimate objective, or the ultimate thing of saying, not is that every day I'm going to try coming into
Mhm.
work, whatever that is, showing up for your spouse, showing up for your friends, showing up for your
Absolutely.
job, your residents, is that some days I will get something wrong. My boss will say that. But I'm going to continuously try. That's what to me is at the heart of a true caregiver.
I agree. I agree
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, and within our Silver Lace memory care neighborhoods, what a constant refrain that I have with people is sometimes people will reach out, what should we do? What should we do
Mhm.
here? How should we serve this person? What intervention shall we use? And I'll say, I can't tell you for certain because there is no certain answer, but what I will relate to them and remind them of is so much of the care that we offer to those with cognitive change is trial and error. All we can do is use the information that we have on that person, what we know of them, what we know of their history, their past, those bits of information, and try and apply them in the most meaningful way possible to increase the likelihood that the approach that we are going to utilize, that the approach that we are
Mhm.
going to use has a high potential of working, but certainly knowing that it's not going to help them every single time. It might not decrease that moment of upset at this moment or this particular time, but it is something that we are going to try. And so much of what I tell people is that so much of memory care is trial and error. We want it to be an educated trial, but
Mhm.
trial
Right.
and error. We try it, we see if it helps that person, if it serves that person. And if not, then we step back and say, okay, what's our plan B? Let's try this. If this isn't helpful, okay, what's our next? But you are so correct. It has to be that curiosity of, okay, well, I've tried A, B, and C. Okay, everybody, what's D? And we
Yeah.
continue to try, because to not try means that we allow that individual to live potentially in a state of less than of not having that quality of life that we might be able to help them achieve if we do keep trying. So I think it's a professional and ethical responsibility that we have, that to keep trying and not to be satisfied with less than on a resident's behalf. If we know we can continue to try and apply educated, person-centered interventions, we have to keep trying.
I love that. To kind of switch gears just for a moment, because I know we only have a few more minutes left, because you've had a career from that moment of being onboarded and then released on your own 24 hours later, what have you kind of seen across the spectrum from yesterday to today that it's like, I love where we're going?
Oh, so much has happened in the last 3 decades that is so positive. I mean, everything from the advent of person-centered care, from Tom Kitwood's original theories to the Eden Alternative with Will Thomas and the things that he's doing, to validation from Naomi Feil, up until this point today, where I literally was able to yesterday just come home from the National Conference for the International Council of Active Aging and came back so excited because, Debbie, the science that is being applied to the world of healthy aging, of that acquisition of health span, not just lifespan, but health span, having a
Health
long
span.
life, but having as much of it be healthy as we possibly can. The science that is developing, the science that is being applied, the data that we now have to help guide us in our efforts to help the residents be the very best that they can be, from a multitude of dimensions of well-being, just even things that seem simplistic, but they're not. But from things like their nutritional perspective, their physical activity perspective, their spiritual experiences. I mean, the science that is being developed and that is coming out and being shared is going to help us continue to grow and offer our residents such a heightened and hopefully extended, not only years of longevity, years of life, but the quality that goes along with it is so exciting. I came home so excited, and I'm so excited to share it with the Primrose organization, our life enrichment leaders, our silver lace memory care leaders, because there are so many things on the horizon that are being shared and that are being developed currently, both from a technological perspective and then also even simply from an approach perspective that I think is so exciting, and just light years beyond where we were 33 years ago, when quite frankly we were still using things like physical restraints or psychotropic medications at will and in excess. Oh, we've come so far. We still have far to go, but I think the horizon is bright. The future is bright. As I get to an age where it might not be too far on the horizon before I find myself entering into perhaps an assisted living, independent or assisted living situation, I find the prospect very exciting and look forward to the quality of life that I could potentially maintain in a long-term care or senior care assisted living environment if they are applying conscientiously the science and the data that is forthcoming. I think the future, I think assisted livings and senior care communities will no longer be seen as a place of deficit, but a place to go and continue one's life's evolution and quality of life in a very positive way.
All I know is that, because you and I are of the same age, is
Yes,
that you have to tell me where you're going, because I want to be there with you, and we will make sure that Duran is playing over the overhead for us. Woohoo!
absolutely. Simon LeBon, you got to hear him.
Okay, my one last question, and I ask all of my guests this. What is one question that I didn't ask that you really wish I would have asked you?
Ooh. Maybe because I think we've had a similar conversation about this before, is how can we utilize the technology and the analytics that are becoming more available to us? How do we apply that to the quality of life for our residents without people feeling that we are removing the human aspect of
Mm,
our care and interactions with the residents?
yeah, it's very interesting, because even when we first came, I mean, back 15 years ago, and we were talking about devices and talking about Wi-Fi, everybody was like, no, you're taking the human element out. And it's like, no, we're just providing care in the air of
Yes.
we talk about using the Duran because it's part of my soundtrack.
Right,
But just
exactly.
it's giving a tool, just like you said. You've got to try A, you've got to try B, try C. So for us, that's one thing that we always say, that whether or not it's music first or faith first, it's using those as just tools into that toolbox when you're trying and you're being curious about your residents, having whether or not we're plan A or we're plan Z. Just we want to be in that plan because we want to help support that curiosity that you have.
A wonderful answer.
Just really quick, I want to ask you this just because I'm super curious. If you could give yourself, going back to that first day when you were onboarding, if you could give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think the piece of advice would be don't be afraid to share your voice if it is one of advocacy on behalf of your residents. Don't allow yourself to be intimidated into silence or ever feel that because you don't know something or you feel like maybe the people in the room are smarter or more experienced than you, that you should be quiet. Let the residents be your voice, let them lead your advocacy, and don't allow yourself to ever become silenced.
And that is a powerful message. And I couldn't end. That's like a standing ovation right there. That all of us need to listen to that advice you would give your younger self. So I just want to thank you so much for giving me a piece of your time and letting me share you with our little corner of the world. It has meant so much to me on a personal level, just because, like I said earlier, it's like after years of kind of stalking you on LinkedIn and just to have time just to be in a little space with you and getting
Yes.
to know you more.
I've appreciated this very much as well. Thank you,
Mm,
Debbie.
Thank you. And for all of you, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Coro Chronicles. And stay tuned for our next episode. Ciao.